British MPs have agreed to release documents relating to the appointment of the former Prince Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor as a trade envoy between 2001 and 2011. He was arrested last week on suspicion of misconduct in public office amid claims he shared confidential government information with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Dr Cindy McCreery is an Associate Professor of History at the University of Sydney and joins us now. Dr McCreery, when will these documents relating to the former Prince's role as trade envoy be released, and what might they reveal?
Good evening, Yvonne. Well, the government is under a lot of pressure to release these documents, but I think we have to be mindful that any release of documents by the government won't be allowed to compromise the ongoing police investigation. So the government will have to liaise with the various police forces in the UK that are investigating Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor and ensure that that investigation is not compromised. The police themselves have said that their investigation is now going to take quite a while, that they won't be making further statements in the near future. So the short answer is we don't know exactly when these documents will be released, but they are of great significance and they really do reveal, I think, a real cultural shift in attitudes towards the monarchy. And no longer, I think, are people in the UK saying we need to give the monarchs, the royal family, privacy and to give them the benefit of the doubt. Now the mantra very much in Parliament and beyond Parliament is we need transparency and we need accountability.
Well, it was quite unprecedented the way some of the MPs were very scathing of the former prince, describing him as rude, arrogant and entitled. What's the purpose of characterising him in this manner, do you think?
That was a very deliberate decision, I think, when they were given advice by the Speaker of the House of Commons that they no longer had to maintain what has always been the tradition in the British Parliament of being polite and respectful of members of the British royal family. And it was, as you suggest, open slather, and several MPs were incredibly blunt, pointing out, I think, that really the rules have changed, that the gloves are off, and that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, now he's no longer, of course, technically a royal, but still, historically a member of the royal family, is absolutely fair game. And I think this shifts something really important. I think that from now on, no member of the royal family, whatever their position, can expect to hide from public scrutiny. And I think the MPs were very deliberately showcasing that in their quite colourful and blunt language.
Well, Australia and New Zealand have joined calls to remove Andrew from the line of succession. Do you think this is likely to happen?
That's a very good question. I think just as a police investigation may take some time, so too this push to remove Andrew from the line of succession will also be a long process. For example, it's not up to Australia or New Zealand or even the British government. It's up to all 14 Commonwealth realms, as well as the United Kingdom, to either pass legislation, as would be the case in the UK and Australia, or in smaller countries to change their own laws. We have not heard from the Prime Minister or the Government of Canada. I would note that the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, is due to visit Australia next week, and that will be a very important meeting for a range of reasons. Mark Carney has, of course, called on middle powers like Canada and Australia to join forces. Whether that's on the discussion table, I don't know. But this is a moment, I think, when the Commonwealth countries that are Commonwealth realms like Australia, Canada, and New Zealand really do show that we punch above our weight. By that, I mean, if you look as a historian, in 1936, in the abdication crisis, when the British King, Edward VIII, abdicated the throne, it was partly due to pressure by the governments of the Dominions, places like Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And indeed, the Australian Prime Minister of the time, Joseph Lyons, really went quite all out to criticise the King's relationship with Mrs. Simpson and to urge that he not be allowed to marry her. He later had second thoughts, but by then the pressure was on, and the King did in fact abdicate from the throne.
And looking back historically, how significant is it that Andrew was arrested? How damaging is this for the royal family?
It's enormously damaging. It's a huge precedent. The fact that a member of the royal family or a former member of the royal family can be arrested at his home is truly shocking to me as a historian. I never expected this. And I think from now on, whatever happens with the line of succession issue, whatever happens with the police investigation, the royal family are in new territory. And I think what we see now is huge pressure on the next generation, specifically William and Catherine, to show the world that they can offer a new path forward. I think more and more the king, while he may continue till the rest of his life as king, I think the momentum and the emphasis shifted from his reign to the next reign. And that's absolutely central for William and Catherine to show that the future of the monarchy is a bright future, a positive future, and that is separate completely from these terrible stories and reputations of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and possibly other members of the royal family.
Now, his arrest wasn't the only high-profile one of recent days. The government's preparing to release a first set of documents relating to the appointment of Lord Mandelson as UK ambassador in Washington. What might these documents reveal?
Look, this is also a very important matter at the moment because what both attempts to release documents relating to Andrew's appointment as trade envoy and Peter Mandelson's appointment as US ambassador is to see whether the vetting process was actually robust and, to be honest, whether the same rules apply to these privileged individuals as would apply to anyone else applying for a senior role. And if there is, in fact, evidence that the vetting process was not robust, or whether there were warning signals that may have been ignored, perhaps for political reasons. That, I think, then brings the UK government and previous governments, both of which were Labour governments, under a great deal of strain and scrutiny. So this is a very important moment, not just for these individuals, but indeed for the British government.
Why is Peter Mandelson under scrutiny? What's been revealed about him in the release of the latest tranche of Epstein files?
Well, he is currently being investigated by the Metropolitan Police under suspicion of sharing confidential documents. And we have to remember that this was at a time of a global financial crisis when the UK government, like many governments, was in a very tense and difficult position in terms of its own finances. And the thought that Mandelson may have shared documents with Epstein is of grave concern because, as former Prime Minister Gordon Brown put it, himself a Labour Prime Minister who in fact brought Mandelson really into the cabinet, he sees this as a betrayal of the country. So this is very high-level, sensitive concerns here, and it really does speak, I think, quite starkly to the issue of loyalty and to what might be in other contexts be described as potentially treasonous behaviour.
So should we expect further fallout as Peter Mandelson is investigated? Do you think he'll be stripped of his peerage?
Yes, I think he will, because my sense is that the House of Lords in particular, there's a great sense of grief is the word I've heard describing the feeling of fellow lords. And I think there is great momentum here with Peter Mandelson. And to be honest, Peter Mandelson has always been a controversial figure. He was known earlier as the Prince of Darkness. And he is, if you like Andrew Mountbatten Windsor now, an easy person to hate. I think he would have very few allies left, certainly in the government. And I think that it could well be that he's stripped of his peerage.
Dr Cindy McCreery, really good to talk to you tonight on The World. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne.